It's the final percent. The final percent.
All right, this is another episode of the Final Percent podcast, and today was basically an ode to Konrad. If you don't know who Konrad is, that is my son. And we realized when we had to go to Costa Rica, well, wait a minute, do babies need passports? Well, if you're wondering what the answer is yes, they do, actually. You have to get a passport for the baby. We thought, you could just do the birth certificate and, all of the documents you get when you have a baby. But that is, alas, not the case. So we went to the post office. They said, hey, it's going to be 5 weeks. We said, well, we're leaving in like 10 days. Can we expedite it? And they said, well, maybe not. We'll expedite it for you, but, we only guarantee expediting. We'll get it to you within 5 weeks. And so then, Cayla, being the perseverance expert that she is, she says, okay, well, that's not going to do. So she calls the passport office, and they said, well, under extenuating circumstances, you can apply to get a same-day passport. So for everybody out there, if you don't know that this exists, if you have travel restrictions, emergencies, different things, you actually can get a same-day passport. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt. You have to get an appointment, and that is only if they have an appointment. We're lucky they happen to have an appointment. But, you go down there, you show your stuff. But the reason that I'm talking about this is we got to go on this adventure. We get the passport. While they're making the passport, we ended up going to the mall. We hung out a little bit. For the first time ever as a family, we went to the mall, pushing our son around, and we were quote unquote one of those people, the people who look normal, the people who are at the mall with their family looking at shoes, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I'm sitting at the mall and I'm going, oh my God, all of the people here are doing back to school shopping. And I realized someday I'm going to do this for Konrad, and I'm going to do this with Konrad. And it brought me back to a moment probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was actually back to school shopping with my nephew, and I was hanging out with him, and I think he was 14, maybe 13, but we were shopping. This is before he had actually lived with me. In case you're wondering what the different sounds in there in the background are, I am in a car, because again, we're staying consistent on this. We are not leaving anything to excuses. As long as we have an internet connection, we're going to find a way to provide some value. But going back to the story, is I got to go and experience this idea when I was in control of, the resources or the opportunity, or, whatever you want to call it. I got to see Sallow when he was, shopping, and it was such an interesting kind of lightning bolt moment for me, because Sallow and I, in a lot of ways, grew up in a similar fashion. And I had forgotten what it was like until I went back to school shopping with Sallow when he was, again, I think 14. So this is like 7, 8 years ago. And, he's being very tentative. Oh, I can get these, one pair of jeans. I can get, this shoe. I can get, shoes, this pair of shoes. He didn't ever think that he was only going to buy one shoe. I'm going to be very honest with you there. But it was very fun to watch it kind of unlock when, I said, no, let's make sure you get your dress clothes for band. Let's make sure that we get you some dress clothes for, if you go on a dance or something. Let's make sure that we get you, some knockaround shoes and some nicer shoes. And I got to introduce him to, like, the idea of having different colored belts. Like, before then, he just thought that, you just you have one belt. It's to keep up your pants. Belts, They have nothing to do with fashion. It's just not stuff that entered his brain. Now he's like, we call him Bougie Berto, because he really does have an affinity for fashion. He really enjoys clothes and got exposed to this way of thinking. And then I started thinking back to my most recent time in Africa and the idea of exposure, because again, I remember when I was young, I didn't get a pair of gym shoes and a pair of home shoes and running shoes and flip-flops and all the different kind of things that kids need these days. It was, here's your shoes for the year, and you got a new pair every year, and it was one. That was it. But then I got exposed to these other ideas, and he got exposed to these other ideas, and we've got to really be mindful of what we're exposing ourselves to, because that's going to take root. It's going to start moving you in directions for good and or bad. And so you got to ask yourself, what am I exposing myself to? So, for instance, I started off the podcast by exposing you to the idea, hey guys, just so you know, in case of emergencies, you can actually get a same-day passport. And I'll bet you a lot of you who are listening go, I had no idea that was possible. I had no idea. But the thing is because of the perseverance expert that my wife is, and asking questions, not taking no for an answer, it's not something they necessarily want to advertise, because then everyone would, quote unquote, have the emergency to get the passport. And so I just started thinking of, what are we going to expose Konrad to? And because I basically started becoming a parent, if you will, when Salo lived with me, he exposed me to the idea of having this life under your purview, this life that you are responsible for, and you have to protect and you have to provide. And now, so, Salo always jokes, he says, right when Konrad hits 14, man, it's smooth sailing, because I equipped you really well for those teenage years when Konrad gets there. And I'm just going to tell you, he's not wrong about that. But also, the whole 0 to 14 is there's a big gap there. And so far, we're 9 months in, and it's way different than I thought. But I was just thinking about, what do I want to expose my son to? What does the exposure look like? I want him to be exposed to kindness. I want him to be exposed to gratitude. I want him to be exposed to an incredibly loving family. I want him to be exposed to, his mom and dad just loving him truly unconditionally. I want him to get exposed to challenging new ideas. I want him to innovate. I want to expose him to music. I want to expose him to, cycling and fitness and the different things that I'm going to get to do as a dad. But here's the thing. I think sometimes as mentors or leaders, we tend to expose and then control. And I know I'm definitely guilty of this, because if I expose someone to an idea that I think is great and then they go a different direction, I take it personally. And I have to let go of that, because all we can really do is expose people to what works for us, expose people to new ideas, expose people to a way of thinking, whether it's the new movie, whether it's the new video game, it's a new sport, it doesn't matter. But when you expose someone to something, we tend to want people to immediately buy into it the way that we do. And so it's just interesting as I walk through that, is you look at these kids who, we were walking through Dick's Sporting Goods, and they're like, I will only wear Nike. And then this other kid, I will only wear Adidas. And then there's this other kid, talking about how Under Armour is absolutely the best thing since basically The Rock came in and saved it. I'm a different, brand loyalist when it comes to basically anything other than Jeep. Jeep is just, everyone who knows me knows that, that's just the way that goes. But if it's athletic, what I will do is I like colors, so I'm gonna if it's green or purple, it's probably gonna get purchased. That's what I like, because I've been exposed to certain things that I really like about that. And so where I'm going with this is I want you to, number one, take a list of what do you expose people to when you are, imagine that you are enrolling someone in understanding you. If you are a whole case study of what is possible in your life, that means we're enrolling people into our philosophy, our curriculum, the way that we teach, the way that we speak, the way that we reach people. How do you enroll people? And when you expose people, look at how long it takes to educate someone. And I think we need to exercise patience, because exposure is such an interesting thing if you look at it right, because exposure doesn't always mean acceptance. In fact, I think we can all attest to the fact that in a lot of ways, it will, in fact, be something that will cause a reactance, especially if it is too different or distant than that person's thought. So exercise patience, have fun on adventures, and, what are you exposing yourself to? So this podcast is all about the idea of exposure. Exposure, and not like musicians who, people say, "Hey, I'll let you on stage and I'll give you some beer and you're going to get exposure." We all know exposure doesn't pay the bills. But what I am saying is, what do you expose people to when they talk to you? Do you expose people to negativity, to gossip? Do you expose people to new ideas? Do you challenge the way of thinking for good and bad? Or do you expose people to kindness, gratitude, generosity, giving, loving? What are you exposing people to? And then here's the one that's just as important, because it is what is the root of what you expose other people to. What do you expose yourself to? Do you expose yourself to procrastination? Do you expose yourself to laziness? Do you expose yourself to, what I find a lot of people, when I'm coaching people is, what they are trying to expose people to and what they expose themselves to, are two different things. So for instance, they'll try to say, "Hey, positive, positive, positive," but then, behind the scenes, they could be borderline depressed. And so try to get those two worlds in alignment is where I'm going with this. And recognize that you have the opportunity to expose anyone and everything to something. Make it something good. Make it something productive. Make it something positive. Remember, we've been around for 14 billion years, this thing called Earth. And if we're going to be on planet Earth for 75 years to 100, we might as well have fun while we're here, because life is really, really short. So expose yourself to adventures, to new things, to new ideas. Have fun. Have a sense of curiosity and adventure. And, shameless plug for the final percent. If you want to expose yourself to more ideas on a platform where we have multiple different people from our coaching staff and some of the bigger people like Sharon Lecter, wherever you're at on your phone, download the Final Percent app, and we have all of our courses on there. You can see all of our past events. You have a ton of fun with there. And then if you really want to take a deep dive, September 27th, 28th, and 29th, we're going to be having a private mastermind retreat style at my house. Probably going to be no more than 40 people. Sharon Lecter has confirmed that she's going to come in and spend real time. It's not just where you come and you watch someone speak. This is a time to engage and talk and love on and really transform your life. Ask the questions and get in the room with the right people, and expose yourself to new ideas. Expose yourself to new people, a new way of doing things, and whether it's through technology, through business, through mindset, it really doesn't matter. It only takes one great conversation to change your entire life. So thank you so much for listening to the Final Percent podcast. And again, We're making the push. If you're enjoying the content, you want me to keep doing these every single day, please just share the podcast on your preferred social media. My Instagram handle is at Greg Kimball, and throw a hashtag the final percent. That would just mean the world to me. So thank you guys so much for listening. We're going to keep this going. I appreciate you. Appreciate you. And I will see you tomorrow.
It's the final percent. The final percent.